2005. She is the Associate Director of Graduate Jewish Programming at Touro College and University System. She's also an editor for the Aspen Center for Social Values quarterly journal, En Route, and a current Wexner Graduate Fellow and Davidson Scholar. She previously served as a Talmud, Bible, and Learning Center teacher at the Ramaz Middle School and at SAR. She was also Rosh Moshe, or head of camp, at Camp Stone, where she continues to work as a summertime staff trainer. She was graduated from the University of Pennsylvania with a Bachelor's of Arts, and we got a lot of students going there, in Jewish Studies and English Literature, with honors in creative writing. She then earned a Master's of Theological Studies in Comparative Religion as a Presidential Fellow at Harvard Divinity School. Her journey toward Divinity School was influenced by her extracurricular activities at the University of Pennsylvania, where she chaired her campus interfaith organization, co-founded and chaired a Muslim-Jewish community service group, served as a religious life liaison to the chaplain's office, and sat on the University Council and the Undergraduate Assembly Steering Committee. She credits her many encouraging teachers and the wide range of extracurricular activities at Ramaz for fostering her love of learning and commitment to communal leadership. Looking toward the future, she hopes for many more years of meaningful opportunities to engage in Jewish education and interfaith work. What a resume for a 10th anniversary speaker. We're so proud and happy to welcome to this podium Malka Fleischman.
Good evening. Rabbi Lickstein, Mr. Shaviv, Dr. Solar, Mr. Miller, Rabbi Stochel, Dr. Copeland, trustees, teachers, graduates, friends, and family. Thank you for having me here to speak tonight, and congratulations to the class of 2015. You did it! I want to thank you for having me here tonight. On the way here, I was reminded of a moment at Camp Stone, which is where my heart always is, when I was a first-time counselor. And I came back to the bunk after a staff meeting at night, and I relieved the nighttime bunk babysitter. And obviously she wasn't doing her job because I walked into the bunk and one of my kids was crying. The others were asleep. So I went over to little Nina's bed. I hope she won't mind my telling this. I went over to her bed. She was 11 years old. And I said, "Nina, what's wrong?" She was crying and crying, and the conversation finally got to a point where it went something like this. "I miss my mom, and I miss my dad, and I miss..." And I said, I know, but you're gonna be fine. Camp's gonna be great. It's the best place on earth. It's all gonna be good. And she just kept going, I miss. And then she said, "I miss my house. I miss my home. And then she looked around the bunk, log cabin walls, and she said, and I'll never forget this, she said, "My home is not made of this." It was the cutest thing. So I think, I was thinking about that because I think a sense of home is a really important thing throughout your life. And for me, being here tonight is emotional, and it's special, and it feels, perhaps more than I expected, incredibly significant. I think there's something comforting and life-affirming about being able to return to a place that shaped you, and about being welcomed back into an old home. Sometimes, especially as young life unfolds into adulthood, the complexity that our stories accumulate makes us think that we're too big, too multifaceted, and too messy to fit into the spaces that once contained us. We sometimes think that our adult selves have outgrown the childhood places we cherish most. And that's a really scary thought. So for me, being here tonight is truly a blessing, and I'm deeply moved, and as often happens in adulthood, I'm humbled by this homecoming. So again, thank you. Thank you for having me. I have heard said about our religion, and about Orthodox Judaism in particular, that it is a ritualistic tradition. We are a people who abide by a strict legal code, and whose strength and continuity are found in communal spaces, wherein we pray at specified times, perform rituals, and observe mitzvot. We, I have heard, are a halachic people, rather than a faithful one. In fact, during my time in graduate school, I often found that faith was reserved for others, that it was the exclusive property of other religious traditions, while Judaism only ever presided over a complex legal system and examined its own long history of jurisprudence. I found in many conversations and in far too many books that faith didn't belong to me. But tonight, I want to disturb that notion a bit. I do believe that we are a people with a legally determined lifestyle, and I wholeheartedly revere and devote myself to an identity based on unwavering commitment to ritual observance. But sometimes I think that we focus so singularly on our primary obligation to halakha that we forget about the importance of faith. Sometimes I think that we forget about our claim to faith and how very integral it is and must be to one's Jewish identity. If we look closely at our people's story, focusing on our forefather Abraham, we find that his journey from Haran was born out of an act of faith. We find that we and our peoplehood, as the product of that journey, were born out of an act of faith. At the beginning of Parshat Lech Lecha, God speaks to Abraham for the first time, and without any preface that we can see, he says, Lech Lecha me'artzecha u'mimoladecha u'mibeit avicha el ha'aretz asher areka. Go forth from your native land and from your father's house to the land that I will show you. And while God sweetens the deal a bit by promising Abraham that he will be the father of a great nation that will benefit from many future blessings, Abraham's response is nonetheless astounding. He wordlessly obeys. He uproots his family, gathers together all of their possessions, and without complaint or protest, he leaves his home to settle in a completely foreign land. This, I believe, is a true act of faith. And it is the first step taken in our nation's history. And so, I would argue that this moment secures the Jewish claim to faith, to Emunah, and it's being a vital part of our tradition. I would argue that we are indeed a people of faith. I would also argue tonight, on the eve of your graduation, that this is the posture and inclination with which you must begin your own journeys. Like Abraham, you must take faithful steps as you leave your homes and relinquish all that is familiar for the wild world that awaits. Why? You bright and brilliant Ramaz students are undoubtedly wondering. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why your steps must be faithful and what that faith might look like. Every summer at Camp Stone, both when I was acting as the Rosh Moshava and now when I continue to conduct pre-camp staff training sessions, I weave the brilliance of Antoine de Saint-Exupéry's The Little Prince into my teaching. By the way, wherever the French faculty is, they're crying in their seats right now because I just butchered that pronunciation. I failed you, but I can't have failed that much because I'm the anniversary speaker, so whatever. In any case, in The Little Prince, a story about a boy who travels to many faraway planets and learns the secrets of the universe. There's a moment when the prince's new friend, the very wise fox, turns to him and says, you guys better listen to this, it's very important. He says, "Here is my secret. It's quite simple. One sees clearly only with the heart. Anything essential is invisible to the eyes." So what does this tell us? We know that to have faith is to believe in things that we cannot see. And now, with the little wise fox's words in mind, we know that the organ through which we faithfully see is the heart and not the eye. We know that faith is the work of the heart. And so, if it's the heart that we use to believe, then we know that the mechanism by which we come to believe is love. So how do you take faithful steps into your futures? You love. Love the world around you. Love the people you meet. Love the ideas you discover. Love the places you visit. And loving all these things doesn't mean liking them. It doesn't mean that you must indiscriminately adore everything. It means that you must open your heart long enough to be vulnerable. Long enough to learn. Long enough to let new ideas, people, and things affect you. Say yes to the world around you and watch it unfold before you. Love who you are, all your history, and all your future dreams, and love those around you. And let Hashem's world, let your world, be full of possibility. Elie Wiesel once said, "The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference." The opposite of art, good job, who said that? You got it. Scholar. That's right. That's how Ramaz trains them. The opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. The opposite of art is not ugliness, it's indifference. The opposite of faith is not heresy, it's indifference. And the opposite of life is not death, it's indifference. So again, I tell you to be faithful, and I tell you to love, and I implore you to never, ever let yourselves become apathetic. Never let yourselves become indifferent. I remember one Shabbat during college when I was sobbing my way through Tfilat Mincha, the afternoon prayer. As most college students at one time or another do, I felt profoundly lost. I was dating the wrong guy. My best friend and I were growing apart. I missed my parents. I had no clue how to manage my money. And more than anything else, I felt that the rose-colored assumptions of my youth were continually being assaulted by the gray of adulthood. And then, something occurred to me as I stood there crying. I realized that as long as my tears were falling, I wouldn't ever be lost. I realized that as long as I cared so deeply about the changing contours of my life, I would continue to examine them and try to understand them. I realized that in all of this, the only real indication of being lost and abandoning my path would be apathy. My mother is here tonight. My father's performing a surgery, so he could not be here. My mother is here tonight. I wonder if she remembers my reaction to the high school visits I made when I was just a little 8th grade girl, trying to decide which one would be the best fit for me. I visited one other co-ed modern Orthodox school that was a bit closer to my hometown than Ramaz. But I remember that in comparison to what I witnessed in the halls of Ramaz, this other school, with its pajama-clad students lazily skipping class and looking like they'd rather be anywhere else, this other school felt less alive. I remember watching Ramaz students furiously take notes in class, animatedly argue about their studies in the lounges, and passionately commit all of their energies to extracurricular activities. I remember how distinguished the boys looked in their ties. I remember how seriously students engaged with their teachers, and the reciprocal respect they were granted. I remember how feverish it all felt. And I, school nerd that I was, I wanted to be part of it. And for the record, I really was a nerd. If I could have, I would have hung out with Dr. Gaylord and Ms. Weinstein on the weekends just to talk about Faulkner and the lonely man of faith. So I really was a nerd, and I really wanted to be part of it. In any case, most high school students equate coolness with not caring. Demonstrations of apathy and indifference are what earn you your street cred. This, according to Urban Dictionary and Zoolander, is the origin of the oft-used phrase, too cool for school. But you, I got a fan, that's nice. But you, I'm talking to you guys now, so you can settle down. You lucky Ramaz graduates, you're not that cool. And that's a good thing. You have been trained to invest in yourselves, to invest in your knowledge, to invest in a tremendously wide spectrum of hobbies, interests, and capabilities, to invest in your community, and to invest in your Judaism. You have been trained to reject apathy and to care. You have been trained to faithfully explore the world around you. You have been trained to see possibility and actualize potential. Throughout all of these years, during which you thought you were just training your brains, you were, perhaps in a way invisible to the eye, also training your hearts. College and the world beyond it will be a lot like Ramaz. You will devote yourselves to your studies and careers, and you will make the grades and earn the accolades that you need to succeed. But along the way, you'll also do what you need to do to survive. You will believe, and you will love. So my bracha to you tonight, my blessing to you tonight, is that you will always, always care too much. That you will always ferociously love, and like Abraham, take faithful steps into your future. Don't you ever dare be indifferent, and don't you ever get too cool for school. Clearly, I did not. Congratulations.